In the Evening Republican on the 21st of November 1887, Captain Webster of the Rosa Mary described the events that had led to disaster from his perspective. Quote, "The weather was hazy. On Saturday morning there was a heavy fog, and the Rosa Mary anchored for 3 hours off Halfordness. She proceeded at 11 o'clock and passed East Goodwin lightship at 7 o'clock in the evening. The fog became so thick that she was compelled to anchor again at 8 o'clock. The vessel being then 7 to 8 miles west-southwest of the East Goodwin light."
Hello, and welcome to the Shipwreck Archive.
Thank you. Would you happen to have the story? The confused collision of the Scholten.
Here we are. Enjoy!
The ship that would result in the closest scrutiny of Rosa Mary's every action was the Netherland-American line vessel, the W.A. Scholten. The Scholten was an iron-hulled screw steamship, originally built by Napier and Sons in Glasgow, specifically for the line. The 2,529-ton ship was launched in 1874, but she had been repaired in 1875, 1880, and 1884, and she was given new boilers in 1886, meaning that she was still considered in good condition despite being over a decade old. The general agent of the line would later admit that while she was not one of the largest ships in the line's fleet, she was one of the most handsome ships to enter the port of New York. He thought that she looked like a yacht. An oil painting of the vessel was hung on the wall of his parlor with pride. Throughout this time, she had been a feature on the route between Rotterdam and New York, primarily carrying immigrants and people who were returning to Europe to see friends and family. This was reflected in her passenger accommodations, where there was room for 60 first-class passengers, 40 second-class passengers, and 500 passengers in steerage. Mid-November was far from the height of the season for the Scholten, as she departed from Rotterdam on the 19th of November, 1887. She had on board about 4 first-class passengers, 15 in second class, and 143 passengers in steerage, in addition to her crew of 52. Her regular captain, Captain Bakker, was taking a vacation and remaining in Rotterdam, and therefore Captain Tat was taking his place. Captain Tat had been employed with the Netherland-American line for the past 15 years, since the line had been formed. But he had lost his regular command, the Edam, in 1882 in a collision with the steamship Lepanto. Captain Tat had conducted himself bravely, saved all the passengers, and been the last to leave the sinking Edam, something that had earned him the respect of the line. If he had been given command of another steady command at any point in the 5 years that followed, it was not stated. But he was still described by the New York Herald as being the captain of the Edam, so it was possible he was not. He was available to substitute for Captain Bakker for this voyage. The steamship Rosa Mary, under the command of Captain Webster, had come to anchor about 10 miles from Dover to wait for the fog to clear up enough for them to proceed. The 1,288-ton Rosa Mary and her crew of 16 had left Hartlepool the day before with a cargo of coal bound for Saint-Nazaire. Whether or not her voyage to the point where she was forced to anchor due to the fog was uneventful was also up for debate. A mackerel boat from Hastings reported that they had their nets damaged by a steamship, and they had chased her. Fragments of nets were indeed found on the bow of the Rosa Mary, but the crew of the Rosa Mary stated that while they had rested at anchor, many pieces of fishing net had settled on both their bow and their anchor chain. They said that they had been traveling full speed ahead at a speed of 8 knots until a quarter before 8, and then they had anchored due to the thick fog they found themselves in at 8, and had not moved. They said that they had 2 lights showing, one white anchor light on the flagstaff, and a second light showing about 3 feet from the rail, and at about a height of 4 feet. They kept the fog whistle blowing the entire time. There was a lot of traffic in the area, but with the fog, he did not feel comfortable going further. The chief engineer, 2 of the able-bodied seamen, and Captain Webster himself stood watch. They had the comfort, at least, that the seas around them were very calm. The second officer of the Scholten would also insist that they had kept a very careful watch. In addition to the usual watch, every officer on the ship was on deck to see the ship safely down the channel. The fog was lifting, according to Captain Webster, though the second officer of the Scholten would state that he had not seen the Rosa Mary through the fog until it was too late to change course. Crews of both vessels saw the lights on the other ship, and for a moment it seemed as though the 2 ships were going to pass one another by. Then the 2 vessels struck, with the bow of the Rosa Mary striking the Scholten on the port bow, ripping off the plates to show the interior of the vessel below the waterline, allowing the Scholten to rapidly start taking on water. How such a thing occurred was up for much debate later. The crew of the Rosa Mary insisted that they were still at anchor, and that the Scholten had altered course, causing them to collide. They had no means to avoid the collision, since they were not under steam. The crew of the Scholten, meanwhile, insisted that the Rosa Mary had been showing anchor lights, leading them to believe it would be safe to pass, but that they had actually been underway, though slowly, and they had rammed them. This story was proposed by the ship's surgeon, despite him acknowledging that he had been asleep at the time of the collision, so he had not seen the events firsthand. Neither ship was aware of the identity of the other one at the time of the collision. They separated, and according to the crew of the Rosa Mary, the Scholten continued on, while the Rosa Mary remained where she was until dawn, also badly damaged. The second officer of the Scholten stated that it had been the Rosa Mary that had reversed her engines, backed away, and disappeared from their view. Captain Webster complained that he had signaled for assistance, but none came from the Scholten, and that there was no acknowledgment from the other ship of what had happened. When Captain Webster was told that the collision with his ship had been what had sunk the Scholten, he had initially insisted that his ship had struck a different vessel. On board the Scholten, everything was almost immediately chaos. The passengers had all retired for the night, but with the collision of the 2 ships, the passengers rushed to the deck still in their night clothes. The panicked passengers scrambled for life preservers, which the Scholten was unusually well equipped with, and tried to reach the lifeboats. The Scholten had 5 lifeboats, and had passed safety inspection in the United States that summer, but the lifeboats had apparently not been well maintained. It was discovered, when there was an attempt to launch them, that only 2 of them were usable. The crew and passengers joined together to chop the boats free using axes as their only chance to free them due to poor repair. Everyone agreed that the officers of the Scholten remained calm, and did their best to calm the passengers. A passenger named Morse told the papers that he had been told that nothing serious had occurred, but he had procured a lifebelt anyway. The passengers also agreed that while the officers had remained calm, the crew did not, and a passenger named Mills said that when he got a lifebelt, it was snatched from him by one of the sailors, a senseless act since there were almost 4 times as many lifebelts as there were people on board the Scholten. This panic among the crew was attributed by at least one member of the crew to be a direct result of the panic of the passengers, as things had gotten disorganized and chaotic. It had unnerved the crew. It would only take 20 minutes for the Scholten to be completely submerged, and the water to be filled with struggling and screaming people. Captain Tott, true to his past record when the Edom had sunk, stayed on his sinking ship to the last. trying to keep passengers calm and get lifeboats launched, even though the ship had developed a bad enough list to the port side that it was impossible to get the boats in the water. The first officer of the Scholten had also gone down with the vessel. The highest-ranking officer to survive the sinking and report what had occurred was the second mate. Despite it being reported that almost all of the passengers were wearing lifebelts as the ship had gone down, many of them had been trapped by the sinking ship and gone down with it. The struggling people in the water also proved to be a hazard, as people struggled to hold themselves above water by frantically grabbing and pulling on the other people, resulting in them going under. In some cases, though, they kept one another afloat and clung together for warmth and companionship. It was fortunate for those struggling in the water that they were in a high-traffic stretch of water, and the Ebro of Sunderland would discover the scene of the disaster. The captain of the Ebro acted quickly, realizing that it would take time for his crew in boats to find everyone in the water. He ordered his deck cargo of timber to be thrown overboard so that the people in the water could hold onto it while waiting for rescue. It was an action that was credited with saving many lives. Some of the people from the Scholten were good swimmers and were able to swim for the rescue vessel. Some of the others simply drifted until they came to the ship, but many of them were pulled from the water by the crew of the Ebro, who patrolled in boats looking for survivors until 4 a.m, when they turned for Dover. The Rosa Mary limped into Dover later that day, badly damaged from the collision, and the work began of trying to piece together what had happened. It proved to be an almost impossible task. The fishermen who said that the Rosa Mary had damaged their nets, and they had been chasing her, also claimed that they had witnessed the Rosa Mary run into the Scholten. This does not seem to be a very credible story, or believed to be particularly credible at the time, since very little time was spent discussing it at the inquest, except for Captain Webster's mention that nets had tangled themselves around the damaged bow of his ship during the night. The coroner questioned the Rosa Mary about her long anchor chain, which would have allowed her to drift, and the second light that she was showing, which could have confused the lookouts of the Scholten and make them believe that there were 2 ships at anchor instead of 1. Captain Webster stated that his ship was entirely stationary, and that, considering the angle from which the Scholten was approaching them, there was no possibility that they had seen 2 lights. They could have only seen 1. In the end, the verdict by the coroner's jury was that the Scholten's officers, trying to cross the bows of the Rosa Mary without making allowances for the strong tide, was an error of judgment. The coroner, however, insisted that the words error of judgment be omitted. Captain Bacher was dispatched by the shipping line to offer what comfort he could to the survivors, and arrangements were made for them to continue their journeys, though many of them had lost family and friends into the disaster. It was estimated that the Scholten had taken around 130 lives down with her. A fleet of fishing boats was dispatched from Dover to bring back the remains of those who had been lost. The remains of Captain Todd would never be found, but the remains of the first officer would be brought into Dover. His casket would be draped with the Dutch flag and buried in a ceremony where all who had been found were interred in the Dover cemetery, with most of the town coming to pay their respects. Not everyone had been identified, though advertisements had been run with the description of people who had been pulled from the water and what they had on them. In some cases it would be forever a mystery, just like the exact events that had led up to the Rosa Mary and the Scholten colliding. For more information, please see the London Times from November 26, 1887, or see our other sources in the description below. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for visiting the Shipwreck Archives. See you soon.